Hi everyone, welcome back to C2 Tactical in Scottsdale. Today, another brief video on transitioning to a red dot. I'm a dot guy. I've been carrying a dot gun for a long time. I was one of the kind of early adopters in the defensive training space, okay? Certainly not from the competition space or all those things, but I made the transition to the dot full time in 2017, something like that. So I've been running a dot for 6 years all the time, which is kind of early in the defensive training community. Not super duper early. I wasn't like the first one or whatever, but a little bit earlier. So let's talk today about why and what distance you would zero your dot at. Palm pepper spray is next generation OC spray. It's hot at 1.4% major capsaicinoids, and its modular design means you can customize it exactly to you. 3 different setups, lots of different color combinations. You can make it exactly as you like. And the flip top safety prevents accidental discharges. It's 10 to 12 foot range and 25 half-second blasts. Make sure that you can keep that long range eye poke at long range. I trust Palm OC and I recommend it for everyone for self-defense. So this is my training gun, Theseus, right? Carried this gun for a couple years. Beautiful gun, love it. HK P30 Lem, Robar, custom. And great gun. Love this gun. It's got about 47,000 rounds down the pipe. I got a lot of time shooting dots. And there's a discussion, let's safely, carefully, reluctantly holster, about what distance to zero your dot. I'm standing at 10 yards away from the target. We've recently been doing a couple of videos on dot offset and those things. Make sure you go watch those to see how this kind of stuff goes. You saw in that last video, I'm going to tip my hand here that my carry gun and my training guns are zeroed at 10 yards. Okay, now there's really no, in my opinion, wrong answer here, okay? So I don't care. I would strongly suggest you don't necessarily zero your carry gun closer than 10 yards. But dude, if you want to get in fights on the internet, talk to people about their AR-15 zero and which one's right. Do you want to do a 100-yard zero? Do you want to do a 50 or a 200, which some people will call 50-200? It's not the same at both of them. If you're at 50, you're at 50. If you're at 200, you're at 200. And what bullet weight you use and all that stuff matters, right? And then some people say, no, the Marine Corps 36-300 is what matters. Again, if it's 36, it's not 300. If it's 300, it's not 36. And so why do they do that stuff? Well, again, because the bullet is on a trajectory, right? So the optic itself, your dot sight or whatever sighting system you're using is straight and it is on a line. However, the bullet is going on a trajectory. It moves up to cross that and then back over. Now, if you're running an AR-15 at 100-yard zero, remember, your line of sight is this. The bullet comes up, kisses it at 100 yards, and then goes back down. That's pluses and minuses to that. Most people, I think today, on an AR-15, zero at either 50 or 200. They should be pretty close. If you're zeroed at one, it should be relatively close to the other. And what that means is your line of sight goes here. It crosses over at 50 yards. It's a little high, maybe 2 inches high at 100 yards, comes back down and touches somewhere around 200 yards, and then starts to slope down from there. So that same principle, right? But if you go in even closer and you cross the first time at 36 yards, then it goes way high. It might be at 100 yards, might be about 7 inches high, and then come back down and cross at 300 yards. Now, there's pluses and minuses to each one. The same stuff holds true with pistols, okay? If you zero your pistol for 25 yards, you are very close to the equivalent of an AR 100-yard zero. So the bullet will come up, touch at 25 yards, it'll kind of graze and go right to the top of it at 25 and then start to kind of drop off. So you're never going to have to worry about anything holding under. So the reason that people like that zero is that at any distance, all they have to worry about up close is holdovers. So at 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, they got to think about the little bit of distance below the point of aim that the bullet's going to hit. But they never have to think about holding under. So they don't got to think, man, if that guy's out at 25 yards, well, I need to hold low on him in order to hit where I want. It's perfectly acceptable, okay? I zero at 10, and the reason I zero at 10 is that to me, that inside of 10-yard zone is where we're going to do most of our practice. It's where we're going to do most of our shooting. I don't mind the half inch above that I am going to hit, half to maybe even 3/4 that I hit at 25 yards. And then I do feel like that gives me a little bit more reach if I have to reach out and touch somebody at 40 or 50 yards, which is possible in a private citizen defensive shooting. Remember, in the Indiana Mall active killer, Eli Dickens took 40-yard shots. And so I would like to be able to not think about my zeros. Also, I feel like at 10 yards, other than at about 3 yards. You saw in the previous video at 3 yards, I'm about an inch low. So if I need to hit something very precise at a very short distance, then I'm gonna Kentucky windage a little bit and hold over. In other words, I'm gonna aim it a little high. But once I get to about 5, 6 yards, I'm off this far. I'm off a half inch. And that's the case all the way out to 25. Well, guess what? At 10 yards, my accuracy is a half inch or more. At 25 yards, there's way more problems with the loose nut behind the trigger than there is with my offsets, right? So that half to 3/4 of an inch of hold under that I need is probably not nearly as big as the wobble zone of the dot that I'm dealing with, okay? So we talked about that on a previous video as well. So if you want to zero at 10, at 15, at 20, at 25, most people are going to zero at either 10 or at 25. Most people are going to do their zeros from a bench. That's great too. How do I get a zero? Well, when I go to get a zero, we made a video on that. Again, I shoot a group, make an adjustment to my optic to get the, so if it's left, then I need to bring the dot right. If it's low, I need to bring it up. Clickety, 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 click. Verify again, take 4 or 5 shots till you get it in there. Be careful not to chase that too far. So my big lesson for you today is, quite frankly, when I teach dot classes, when I go to dot classes, some people can be very dogmatic about what distance you zero your optic at. I'm not. I think that I do 10 yards for me because the amount of hold unders that I need is really minimal, and I don't have to think about my holdovers other than at very, very short distances, like if I'm running dot torture at 3 yards or something like that. Even that's only a half an inch. Whereas when I run a 25-yard zero, it just doesn't give me the kind of extra length that I would like on my guns. If that's not a deal to you, I don't care if you zero at 25 yards. Do whatever you think is best. If you want to go somewhere in the middle and you're like, hey, I'm going to zero my optic right in between those, and so I'm going to do 17.5 yards. Hey, may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face to smile upon you, okay? Totally fine by me. Just make sure your dot is zeroed and that you do so consistently. For me, my training gun is zeroed at the same distance as my carry gun, so I don't have to think about which gun I am carrying. And my carry gun is zeroed that way with carry ammo, my training gun with training ammo. Hope it helps you in your transition.